So, my dear friends in Christ, if anyone ever says that the Bible is this old, impersonal document that has nothing to do with our modern times, I would just say read the last couple sentences here of the Gospel of John in today's Gospel. It's just really beautiful. What he's basically saying is this Gospel, the entire Bible, was written for you. It was written for you, and these words are so personal. These words are written that you may come to believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and through this belief that you may have life, right? That's what the scriptures are. They're not this old document that some people will say, but again, this living word of God that the entire point of it is for you, that you might believe and have life. It's amazing. So I just like that last thing. Okay, now to the homily. So I guess just like entering into this gospel passage, let's just put ourselves in that upper room on the first day of the week with the apostles. In that upper room, there were 10 of them. Thomas wasn't there, and Judas had already hanged himself, so there were just the 10 who had gathered. And just think of even like that Good Friday night, all of Holy Saturday, until that evening of the first day of the week. Just imagine what was going on in that room. Think of all the fear, all the shame, everything in that upper room. They had abandoned the one that they loved, right? In his hour of need, they left him, and they completely scattered like sheep. And they knew that. And again, so just like imagine the fear, the sadness, the loneliness in the room, that locked room, all the hopelessness that was there. And I think what this locked room kind of indicates like right away is what happens to our souls when we turn to sin. Like what we do when we turn to sin is we just like lock ourselves away in this place of sadness and hopelessness, and we're like, well, this is where I am now. Like this is like what I am. This locked room with nowhere to go. But then with this next line is just so beautiful. Jesus came and stood in their midst. Jesus came and stood in their midst. And now imagine that scene. So like you're there, like you're really down in the dumps, but then there he is, the risen Lord, appearing in the locked room right there. And like you're thinking maybe like, what is he gonna say? Right? What is he gonna say to us? Is he gonna condemn us for fleeing, for running, for abandoning him? What is he gonna say? And then Jesus opens up his mouth and he says, Shalom, peace be with you. Peace be with you. Like just imagine like all that junk, all that garbage that they were experiencing just vanished like in an instant because Jesus had come to bring them his peace. That's awesome. It's just really, really awesome. And so this happened 2 times, right? Once on that first day of the week and then once on the 8th day of the week, which is today, Divine Mercy Sunday. He shows up again in that locked room and he says, peace be with you. And now finally Thomas is there. And again, although Jesus miraculously appeared to the disciples behind locked doors, right? Because again, with his risen and glorified body, he had the capability of going beyond the laws of nature. So he could show up in the locked room. Like he didn't just like put his shoulder down and just like plow through the door, although he could have, but he didn't. He just showed up in that locked room. So he's there. He's there. And he's behind those locked doors, right? But there were still doors within that room that Jesus had appeared to that Jesus would not enter through, not before an invitation. And those doors were the doors of the disciples' hearts. The 11 disciples who were standing there before Jesus after he said, peace be with you. The doors of their hearts. He would not enter before at least the smallest invitation. And I think that, just that beautiful scene that comes to mind is from the book of Revelation, where Jesus says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. And what is he knocking for? He's waiting to dine with us and we with him. That's what he's doing. He's knocking. And then you imagine that beautiful painting of Jesus knocking on the door. Like when that painting was painted, I think it was in the early 1900s, of Jesus knocking at the door. Like the artist was showing everybody this painting. And they started laughing at him because he didn't put a doorknob on the door within the painting. He said that's totally on purpose, right? Jesus is not going to break into the door of our hearts. All he does is he knocks, and he waits for us to open it. Who is Jesus, right? Again, today we celebrate Divine Mercy Sunday. He is love and mercy itself. Like, he wants to pour out his love, his forgiveness, his peace into our hearts, right? Because we really, really need it. But again, God is a gentleman, and he's never going to force his way into our hearts. He's never going to force his mercy and his peace upon us. He's never going to use that force. And so again, like today, this is just a really great feast of mercy. We celebrate the mercy of Christ and also the same mercy that Jesus showed to Saint Faustina in the 1930s. Just this beautiful, beautiful, I don't know if you've ever read the diary of Saint Faustina, but it's an amazing book. I haven't made it the entire way through, but I just know like each page, it's not like a quick read, but it's just like slowly going through it. For me, one of my favorite passages is paragraph 1507. If you guys are taking notes, it's 1507. Just kidding, nobody takes notes here. Do they? I don't know, maybe you do. Just kidding, nobody. All right, back to the script. So this is St. Faustina talking about the mercy of God. This is so beautiful. So she says, "Let no one doubt concerning the goodness of God. Even if a person's sins were as dark as night, God's mercy is stronger than our misery. One thing alone is necessary, that the sinner set ajar the door of his heart, be it ever so little, to let an array of God's merciful grace, and then God will do the rest." Isn't that beautiful? Just like those lines. Maybe to break these lines down. First thing, let no one doubt concerning the goodness of God. Who is God? He is goodness, love, and mercy itself. That's all he is. And he desires our good and could not desire anything else. He's pure love, he's pure act, and he loves us. So let no one doubt concerning the goodness of God. He's the best. And then she's like, even if a person's sins were as dark as night, even if you were the worst sinner in the world, the worst one, the one who is like, you think you're basically beyond saving, even that sinner, God's mercy is stronger than our misery. There's nobody beyond the grasp of God's mercy. Nobody. And then she says, one thing alone is necessary, that the sinner set ajar the door of his heart. Set ajar the door of his heart. All you got to do is crack it open. Because she says, be it ever so little. She's not saying that Jesus wants you to make sure everything is open, completely ready for him, like completely cleaned up before he gets there. She's like, all you have to do is crack that door an inch. Just an inch. You don't even have to clean up the house before Jesus comes. Just crack it open a tiny, tiny bit. And then I love the last line here. How she says, what is that going to do? Even that little tiny crack is going to let in an array of God's merciful grace. Just a ray. And I love, again, the beautiful divine mercy image. Jesus has these two rays just emanating from his heart, right, representing the blood and water that flowed from his side. Just a little bit. And then she says, let God do the rest. Let God do the rest. Let him heal you. Let him pour out his mercy into your heart. And then she continues, and this is what I did not read this earlier, but I think this is important too. She says, but poor is the soul who has shut the door on God's mercy even at the last hour. Right? What is the entire point of our spiritual life? The entire goal? It's to say, Lord, all I want to do is crack open my heart to receive your mercy, that you might transform me. And the worst thing that I could do is just ignore your knocking. Ignore your knocking. Well, today Jesus is knocking on the door, and he wants us to let him in. This is a great, great feast of mercy. And so what does that look like in the spiritual life? How do we let God in? How do we let even like the smallest ray of God's ray of mercy come in? Well, first thing I would say is prayer. Like to show up to prayer. I think I've talked about this before, but I think like what we're really good at doing as Catholics is complicating prayer. But like, what is prayer except sitting in the presence of God and saying, Lord, all I want you to do is let your mercy flow into my heart. I just want to receive all the good things that you want to give me, because again, that's the spiritual life. Like to say, Lord, my hands are open and I want to receive you. I want to receive you. It's not a complicated thing, but we always overcomplicate it. Like, well, I got to like figure out like all this stuff. Just stop and let him love you. Right? Are you brave enough to let the Lord love you? That's what prayer is. So to show up for prayer intentionally, even if it's 10 minutes a day, to just shut off the phone, the distractions, and just to say, Lord, let me allow you to love me. Another really practical way of cracking the door open is going to confession. To really say, like, Lord, here's my heart, here's all the junk inside of it, and I just want to crack open the door a little bit to let you take care of the rest. I'm going to confess all of this junk in order to receive your mercy here. That's such a beautiful sacrament. To let his mercy flow into your heart completely is amazing. And then the third thing, to receive the Holy Eucharist worthily. To say, Lord, like, I want to receive you entirely, and like your body, blood, soul, and divinity into my mouth, right? And then ultimately into my heart, into the depth of my heart, to let your mercy flow. And I've been using that word flow, the verb flow, quite a bit, but like, I think it's a really great verb to describe God's mercy, because like water, right? When you pour water into something, it goes to the lowest place immediately. It doesn't just like float on top. It flows to the bottom. It's like, that's like the nature of God's mercy too. He doesn't just want to hang out on top of your spiritual life, just like on the surface. He wants to go to the depths, to the lowest place in your heart, to that stuff that maybe you don't even want to bring up, you don't even want to talk about, you want to pretend is gone, that maybe you've been just like covering up for like years. He wants to go there, and he wants to transform that spot. There's this great line from St. Augustine where he said, "In my deepest wound, I saw the Lord, and it dazzled me." I think that's so cool. Just to let him in, to go all the way in. So like prayer, confession, the Eucharist, these are all great ways of just cracking the door a little bit to let him in, and to let him do what he does best, which is to be our merciful God. Again, mercy is not just one of the couple of things that Jesus does. It's literally who he is. Mercy is God's greatest attribute, and all he wants to do is give us his mercy. Are we willing to let him in? Are we willing to let Jesus transform our hearts to make us into the saints that he's calling us to be? Today, on this Divine Mercy Sunday, let's really ask for that grace to let him in. And then today, this afternoon, I'll make a little announcement later. We're going to have a little Divine Mercy retreat from 2 to 4. So really, I think that's a good time too today to be like especially concrete, to say, Lord, this is the time where I'm just going to show up and let you do what you do. It's awesome.